טרור נגד יהודים, כיצד האנטישמיות עולה והמדינה נכשלת, כתב אישום. זה שמו של ספר שנכתב בגרמניה. הוא מאשים את השלטונות ובעיקר את המשטרה על התעלמות ממעשי האנטישמיות הקשים ההולכים ומתרבים. הסופר, יהודי גרמני, המתגורר בברלין, רונן שטיינקה. שלום רונן.
שלום, היי.
היי. המציאות כל כך מפחידה?
כן, המצב מפחיד מאוד, האלימות נוראית.
אז תכף אנחנו נרחיב בעניין הזה בשפה האנגלית, לכם הצופים יהיה תרגום בעברית למי שיבחר. אנחנו יוצאים לתשדיר קצרצר 20 שניות, וחזרנו לראיון המלא באנגלית עם רונן שטיינקה, העיתונאי בברלין.
My name is Yannis Feropoulos, Maccabi Tel Aviv coach and a real Greek. Like the Euro yogurt.
יורו מחלבות אירופה מביאה לכם יוגורט יווני אמיתי מיוון.
Top European taste.
Hey Ronen.
Hi.
Hi, nice to have you here. Even though you speak Hebrew fluently, you prefer to talk in English. So just before we continue, can you tell us where did you learn in Hebrew? Because I understand that you were born in Germany, yeah?
I was born in Germany, raised in Germany. I'm German and I lived in Germany all my life, but I have an Israeli mother and a German father. So I know Hebrew from home and from the family, but if we're talking about politics and about law and about these issues, I'm more comfortable with English.
You prefer it, okay. So when did you first identify that there is an increase in the anti-Semitism in Germany?
If you go to a synagogue in modern-day Germany, you will pass by a policeman guarding the door. If you go to a Jewish school in Germany today, you will pass by a policeman guarding the door. This is something that to me was normal growing up in Germany, and I didn't question it most of the time. And it's only now as an adult that I'm beginning to ask more and more, how is it that we've learned to accept this situation? It's unacceptable. Germany is one of the richest countries in the world. It's a safe country. It's a country with a state that functions and a police that is very effective. But how can we tolerate that this level of anti-Semitic violence has taken root here?
Yes, but do you see an increase recently?
So the statistics tell us that there's been an increase in the last 5 or 6 years, and it's not surprising. The political landscape in Germany has become a lot less comfortable. Since the refugee crisis in 2015, a new right-wing movement has gained ground. A new right-wing party like the Front National in France has also established itself in Germany. And racism has become much more of a part of the everyday discourse, unfortunately. And this is not something only for Muslims to suffer. So, also something that Jews are feeling and are suffering.
In your book, you even call those action as terrorism. Is it so severe?
So 1 year ago, there was a right-wing shooter who tried to enter the synagogue in a city in East Germany, in a city called Halle. And he tried to make a massacre like in Christchurch. He had lots of weapons with him. Fortunately, he was stopped and he managed only to murder 2 persons and not more. And only a couple of weeks ago in the city of Hamburg, which is a very, a nice city, a rich city, a young Jewish man who was entering the synagogue was attacked by somebody with a spade, and he hit him on the head and broke his skull. So this is only 2 examples from the last year, and of course I think we should call this terrorism. We have a tendency in the West, in Europe definitely, to use the word terrorism only for violence against the powerful, against politicians, against the political system, but a kind of political violence against a minority like Jews in Germany, deserve this word also.
Can you tell us what is the frequency of these attacks? Is it something like normally happen?
Real violent attacks where people are hurt, luckily, are not something that happens every day. You know, every few days you might hear something, and the kind of attacks.
Every few days, you are saying?
Yes.
Every few days.
Well, Germany is a large country. Every few days you have these kind of attacks. It's dramatic, but it's not, we have, lethal attacks every day. But what you should remember is the only reason why we don't have so many lethal attacks is because every Jewish institution in this country is protected by the police. And still we have these attacks. So to live in Germany and to practice the Jewish faith in Germany, I compare it in my book to living under siege. Yeah, you have to hide behind fences with video cameras, with a whole security apparatus, because the police, in their analysis, tells us that that's the kind of protection we need against violent attackers.
So this is the attitude of the authorities and the police over there?
So you will notice that politicians and also police chiefs make very nice speeches on historic dates, Holocaust remembrance days. But when it comes to taking care of the interests of living Jews, they're a lot less active, unfortunately. They, I argue, have learned to accept this level of anti-Semitic violence, and they've kind of stopped really being active about it.
So is it true that the police handle those cases in double standard? That's what you are telling me? Between the Jewish community and the general the Germany population, Germans people?
It's a problem which not only Jews know, it's a problem for other minorities also, for Muslims, for Black people in Germany. If you go to the police and you report a hate crime that has been committed against you, very often you are left with the feeling by the police that you are also part of the problem. So there is a kind of systemic, a kind of structural racism and discrimination which, discourages people of minorities to even go to the police. And statistics tells us that only every fifth attack against Jews is even reported to the police because the level of trust for the police is so low.
I understand. And does your analysis refer also to the question which group is in particular commits those violent acts against Jews? Is it mostly committed by minorities, for example, the Muslim refugees, or by native Germans, white people?
Well, quite dominantly, almost like the large majority is committed by ethnic Germans, the white people that you were referring to. Right-wing, racist, white superior, neo-Nazi violence is the biggest problem for Germany's Jewish population today. And then there are also other groups which are violently anti-Semitic. Yeah, of course, there is violent anti-Semitism within the Muslim community, and of course there are attacks also from the left of the political spectrum. But the biggest problem today is right-wing terrorism. So
what exactly the police do with respect to those violence acts? They delete it, they ignore it. I heard you say that Jews suffer from attacks like this, actually refrain from filing complaints with the police. Is it like this?
It's like, yeah, absolutely. Jews very often refrain from turning to the police because they make bad experiences with the police. And I'll tell you an example, which, I'm a trained lawyer, I study judgments, and one judgment that I studied is particularly striking. There was a fire attack against a synagogue in a city called Wuppertal in the west of Germany. People threw Molotov cocktails against the synagogue, and they were caught and they were put to trial, which is a good thing. And then the judge said, wow, this is not really an anti-Semitic attack. I'm not going to judge this, harshly as a hate crime because the attackers say this was criticism against the state of Israel. And, I believe it's totally fair to criticize the state of Israel as much as you like with words, but it can never be an excuse to attack a synagogue in the city of Wuppertal or in any other city for that matter.
Absolutely. I have to ask you a direct question. Did the Germans learn the lesson from the past? It looks like they didn't.
Well, the Germans, of course, is a large group, and there's, different people take different lessons from the past. And I think that the lesson, what is the lesson from the past? The lesson should be that the state has to be on the side of the minorities.
Yeah, exactly.
And whether they're Jews or whether they're other minorities. And I think that the German state, but like other European states also, gives minorities the impression that they're special interest groups and that they should get to the back of the queue because the state primarily wants to take care of the majority. And I think that's really the wrong approach. And it's what my book argues against. I think this is a wrong direction in which Germany is headed.
I understand. Do you have family, kids?
Yes, I do.
Aren't you afraid?
Of course. I mean, if you bring your kids to a school, a Jewish school, and you have to pass a metal detector, like in an airport, that's something that it's a very, very tough to
And
give
it's
your
not
kids.
normal, yeah? Like this every day?
Well, you actually ask a great question. Is it normal? It happens every day, but it's not normal.
It's not.
Sometimes we think this is normal because we've lived like this for so long as Jews in Germany, but it's not normal. It was never normal. It's never going to be normal. And I protest against it with my book.
Anyway, are there any other precautions that your family, you and the other people in the Jewish community take? As a precautions, yeah?
Yeah, well, one question that we get asked many times is, are you thinking of leaving Germany? So not many people make this decision to leave Germany, but many people make the decision to flee in a different direction. They flee into invisibility. If people have a Magen David on their train, they will hide it underneath their pullover. If people want to wear a kippah, they will hide it underneath a baseball cap. And we've seen this over the last years. People are hiding, people are going into invisibility. And this is something that's very concerning to me.
Yeah, but if the situation reminds us the 1930s, and as I understand it is severe, why don't you leave Germany?
I don't think it's fair to compare it yet to the 1930s. I think we should, I would like to invite you to assess the situation in present day Europe and Germany, and not to take that as the only point of reference. But why am I not prepared to let the attackers triumph? Why am I not prepared to let them expel me from my own country, the country that I was born in, the country that I care for, where all my family and friends are? Well, I have a very Israeli...
It's your homeland, that's what you are saying.
It's my homeland, and the Israeli attitude, which I totally share, is we're not running. I'm not running from terrorists. I'm standing in their way, and I'm, taking up the fight, and I'm rallying up support and demanding from the state to support us against these attacks.
Okay. I am holding another book of yours, Fritz Bauer, the Jewish prosecutor who brought Eichmann and Auschwitz to trial. Actually, you expose in this book that Bauer had to put a lot of efforts to convince Israel, actually, to send the Mossad to catch Eichmann. So, can you tell us, please, more about it?
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. He was a Jewish prosecutor who came back from exile after the Second World War. And he came back to Germany because it's his home country, and he wanted to rebuild it and to make a better Germany. And he was, for a long time, the only person who was interested in hunting down Eichmann. Mm-hmm. At this time, in the 1950s, the Israelis were not interested in doing this at all. Why? Because the Israelis had problems in the present to deal with. The threats in the Arab neighborhood, all of these things were much more urgent than to go into your past. So there was never a policy of Nazi hunting. And then this Jewish prosecutor in Germany, he got the information, the valuable information, where Eichmann was hiding. And he had to make a decision, what am I going to do with this information? And you have to understand that at this time, in the 1950s, the German justice system, prosecution, the courts were so full of old Nazis who had just changed their uniform but not really changed their minds, that he was afraid that if he would officially go on a hunt and to arrest Eichmann, that his colleagues would sabotage him. So he made the decision, a lonely decision, to contact the Mossad instead, and then to convince them and to pressure them to hunt down Eichmann.
Actually, Bauer took a risk, yeah, by exposing German secrets to the Israelis. This is the point. Okay.
Absolutely. This lonely Jewish prosecutor in Frankfurt in West Germany risked his career and probably risked his freedom, because if it would have become public that he was secretly conspiring with a foreign secret service to kidnap a German citizen, you know, even though a war criminal, no question, still is a German citizen, that would have been totally criminal. So he took the risk and he followed his conscience, and I think we should be thankful for him. And I wish that in Israel also he would be recognized more for this.
Yeah. So I want to thank you very much, Ronen, and take care of yourself there.
Thank you very much, Esti.
Thank you. טוב, עם הדברים הבאמת לא פשוטים האלה, אני נפרדת מכם, חומר למחשבה. להתראות בתוכנית הבאה.